I interviewed at Biola, they wrote down what they thought of me after I did my teaching. And someone wrote this. They said, this professor will become well known across campus as the professor not to take. Yeah. I will say this, you will understand more when I get done with this, but I can assure you that 9 years ago, almost to the day, 9 years ago next week, I set up a doctor's appointment, and Thanksgiving I decided not to return to teach, and I didn't think I would ever teach again. So I'm thankful that I have learned to live a bit with anxiety. Well, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. My mental health isn't very good because Real Madrid beat Barcelona. Where's Amanda? Amanda, you lost that bet. You want to just say it now or later? Stand up, Amanda. Let's go. Let's just get it over with. Right here. Come on. Yeah! Okay, everybody be real quiet and listen to what she has to say. Yeah, I couldn't hear it. Could you start that over? Yes. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know Amanda, she's from Madrid, a la Madrid, and I lived for 6 years in Barcelona. So we have a little thing going, and she lost that one because I got the mic. Anyway, it's Mental Health Awareness Week this morning. My wife spoke on just... on overall how to improve your mental health, and somebody asked me after the chapel, they walked up and they said, how did you marry her? And I don't think that it was a compliment. So tonight I want to talk about probably the most common mental illness, which is anxiety. And I almost said it's my friend. Yeah, okay, kind of. About 9 years ago, as I was saying, like I said, almost to the day, I was done. I mean, I literally spent about 3 months on a mattress in my living room, and I couldn't do anything. I told my bosses I'm never going to teach again, and they laughed at me. They literally laughed at me. Don't do that when somebody tells you they're struggling. I was nervous about everything. Teaching, going to the store, driving, walking outside, everything. I was a wreck, and I was crying out to the Lord. You know, hey, I trying to make deals. You ever do that? I teach the Bible. Come on, you know, a little something for me. I trusted him, but I still struggled with anxiety. There was a survey done in 2020, this is before COVID, of adults, and 62% of them said that they had some anxiety at some point in their life. That's a pretty high number. 31% developed or will develop an anxiety disorder at some point. Not all at once, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last forever, but at some point it would be called an anxiety disorder. Before COVID, 33% of teenagers, that's some of you, 33% struggled with anxiety. People in their 20s, 22% struggled with anxiety. 10% had severe, what they labeled as severe anxiety. And COVID has increased this by 25%. That's what they're saying. Now, it could be high, could be low, and it also depends on how you reacted to COVID. Some, like my younger son, just continued living life normal. So I don't think that it changed his anxiety levels at all. But they did do a survey here at Biola in 2018. Guess the percentage of people who said that they struggled sometime during the school year, not necessarily the whole year, but at some point they had severe anxiety. Guess the percentage and tell your neighbor, okay? Okay. 65%. It was 65%. How many of you guessed higher than 65? How many guessed lower than 65? Okay, so the people that are raising their hands lower, you probably don't struggle with anxiety. And the people that raise their hands probably do struggle more with anxiety. You can thank Dr. Gray's Intro to Psychology for that. So if you feel anxiety, Biola students, you're not alone. But it's in this context of anxiety, 65% or more or less, that we read Jesus' words. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, right? Believe also in me, Jesus says. How does that make you feel? That's my psychological question for the night, psych majors. How does that make you feel when you hear that? It's the very call to not be troubled is troubling, isn't it, for many of us? I think that anxiety for us Christians, depression and mental illness is even harder, but especially anxiety, because doesn't the Bible tell us to not be anxious? Doesn't it tell us that if we're anxious, we're lacking faith and we're not really trusting in God? And we hear things like, have faith, dude. God will take away your anxiety. I was keeping track of the number of people that walked up and said, you got this. Well, I might not. What's wrong with you? Just pray, right? So we struggle as Christians with anxiety. I'll give you one example. A few years ago, I had a student come in and tell me that she met with a biblical counselor from her hometown. It wasn't somebody from Biola, not from the BCC, or from around here. And she told this counselor that she struggled with anxiety, and the counselor told her that she was not a Christian, because a real Christian does not struggle with anxiety. Was that counselor right? Can Christians struggle with anxiety? Well, let's go back to John. Let's look at the context of that verse and look at the word troubled. Don't be troubled. How is it used? What does it mean? Well, John 11:33. And it's weird not being in class and having somebody else read scripture. When Jesus saw Mary weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, Jesus was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Jesus was troubled. It's the same word. 12:27, Jesus speaking, now my soul is troubled. And he said this when he was thinking about his coming death. Jesus was troubled. John 13:21, after he said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, very truly I tell you, one of you is going to betray me. As he thought about one of his 12 betraying him, he was troubled. And just in case you missed that, Jesus was troubled. Okay, you catch that? That's how the word troubled is used in John. Then we get to John 14, don't let your hearts be troubled. And again, a lot of us Christians read that in a certain way, right? I shouldn't be troubled. I shouldn't be anxious. I must not believe in Jesus. Well, why would Jesus tell the disciples here in John 14:1 to not be troubled? What do we have to do? Bib and terp, what'd you learn? Context. So let's go back to John 13. Jesus washes the disciples' feet. He announced that he's going away, and the disciples can't go with him. You feeling it? Peter's upset, so he asked Jesus, why can't I follow you? I will lay down my life for you. And Jesus says, really? Really? You're going to disown me 3 times. That's the last verse in chapter 13. And the next verse, guess what it is? Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Would that be troubling that Jesus is going away for the disciples? What did they leave to follow him? Everything, right? They left family, jobs, they're fishing. Matthew, the tax collector, he burned that bridge, he's done. Because they thought Jesus was the Messiah, right? And now Jesus says, I'm leaving. And you can't come. Would that be troubling? Yes or no? Okay, 3 of them answered. That's pretty good, right, Willa? I always tell my students that after I teach, I have to tell my wife how it went. Wasn't a very good response. I'm in trouble when we get home. Here's how the word trouble can be translated, besides troubled. Inner turmoil, unsettled, confused. Would they be confused? Would they be troubled when Jesus says that he's leaving? Of course they would, because the Jewish people thought that the Messiah would be what kind of a Messiah? Warrior king. And he would get rid of the Romans and set up his kingdom, and who would rule with him? The disciples. And now he says, I'm leaving and you can't come. Would that be troubling if you were one of the disciples, yes or no? Yes. Thank you, those of you who care about my marriage. Now, we're up to 10 now. We're doing better. So basically, they don't understand Jesus. Where are you going? We're troubled, we're confused, we are anxious. And in that context, again, Jesus says, hey, don't be troubled. Don't be confused. Don't be anxious. Keep trusting in me. Keep trusting Jesus even when you are confused. You don't understand. Of course you don't, right? You don't understand what I'm doing, but trust me, I got this. That's what we would say today, right? That's what John 14:1 means. Keep trusting Jesus even when you're confused, even when you're troubled, even when you are anxious. Say this with me, will you? Keep trusting Jesus in the midst of troubles and anxiety and difficulties. I could hear you, the legend. John 14:1 does not mean we will never be anxious. I don't think that's what it means at all. In fact, look at what Jesus says in John 16. I told you these things so that you may have peace. In this world, you'll have what? Trouble. You're going to be troubled, Jesus is saying. So John 14:1 can't mean that we'll never be troubled. Can't mean that we'll never be anxious. The question is, what do we do when we're troubled? What do we do when we're anxious? Well, let's look to the example of Jesus. Always a good idea. What did he do when he was most troubled? In the Garden of Gethsemane, when he sweats blood, which is a sign of stress, anxiety, right? I mean, talk about anxiety. I've never sweat blood. Have you guys? Nobody? All right. What did he do? Trusted in God. And he said, not my will, but yours. Right? I'll keep trusting you, God. I'd rather not go this path. I mean, he does, because he wants to follow God's will. But if there's another way, that would be okay. But he says, I'll keep trusting you. Not my will, but yours. That's the idea in John 14:1. When we're troubled, confused, feeling anxious, Jesus calls us to trust him in the midst of all of the confusion, all of the difficulties, all of the anxiety, all of the depression, all of the mental illness. I don't know why he doesn't get rid of it. It's irritating sometimes, isn't it? He could. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Doesn't mean we'll never be anxious. We good? Everybody with me? Okay, I'm going to turn the page. Let's get a little practical. Don't raise your hands. I was going to have people raise their hands. My wife said, don't do that. Do you have anxiety? Do your friends have anxiety? Because the fact is, even when we trust in Jesus, many of us will experience anxiety, right? So what do we do? You got something practical for us, preacher? Or are you just going to tell us keep trusting in Jesus? Because we already knew that. What have I learned walking with anxiety for nearly 10 years? Here's one book, Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living. It's been used by tens of thousands of people. Public service announcement. If you don't struggle with anxiety, pay attention anyway, because half your friends do. So look to your left, look to your right. One of them, if not both of them, are struggling with anxiety. And if you're not, probably both of them. And if you are, maybe one of them. First, pray. Everybody's going to quote Paul here, right? Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, Every one, good and bad. Prayer, petition, thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I memorized this verse when I was 18 years old in college, and I still got it in New American Standard. This is NIV. Prayer will help. It will help lessen. For some of us, it will eliminate, I should say it this way, for some of you, it will eliminate anxiety completely. So pray about the situations that trouble you. But for some of us, like me, you can pray and pray and pray and pray, and you're still going to struggle with anxiety, like I did. Notice that the verse does not say that the peace of God will take away all anxiety, right? It says the peace of God which transcends understanding. And we'd have to do a whole nother chapel on what that means. But thankfully that's in Philippians 4, and I think that's coming up in chapel. So I'm sure they'll talk about that in about a month or so. Okay? But I don't think that Paul in Philippians is saying that all anxiety will be taken away either. Prayer is not the only thing we can do, but that's number one. Second, forgiveness. When we don't forgive people, it hurts us emotionally. It increases anger, it increases bitterness, it increases anxiety, and it increases depression. We should work really hard to forgive people. My best guess is that at Biola, 80 to 90% of you have unforgiveness somewhere in your heart. And that's to not say 95%. Okay? Most people that I talk to have it somewhere deep down. I talk a lot about forgiveness in the relationships class. I was talking with one person one time and they said, yeah, I didn't think I struggled with forgiveness, but I have not forgiven my mom at all. And I said, you want to forgive her? And she said, I'm not sure if I want to. And she left my office. Unforgiveness is the biggest open door to the evil one that you can have. Forgiveness will reduce anxiety. Gratitude. Give thanks. Listen to these words from Dr. Amit Sood. Humans are programmed to be dissatisfied. That's cheery. The mind strives to improve your present moment, but it picks impossible goals. Everybody should like me. I should always be successful. I should never experience pain. And my wife and I always make her read my messages, and she read that and she goes, yep. We can't meet these goals. We can't. But our mind sets these goals up for us, but it's impossible to meet them. He says, half of our awake time, our mind struggles with unfulfilled desires. Think about that. Our minds, our thinking, is in a nearly constant state of disappointment and frustration with ourselves. That causes, guess what I'm going to say next? Anxiety. Unless we fight against our thoughts, because we're in control of our thoughts. We just don't think that we are. And we learn to give thanks. Those who practice gratitude, research shows, are up to 40% happier. And it doesn't take long to do this either. It just takes time. With practice, our attitude can change. I want to give an example, the Biola calf. And I know what people say, and I'm not making any comments about the Biola calf, but I know last spring there was a relationships class where people had to fill out a gratitude journal, and one student decided to write down that he was thankful for the calf over and over and over again. And so now if you say to the student, hey, Clark, what do you think about the calf?
It's amazing.
He loves it. What?
It gets better every day.
Gets better every day. He loves it. We went to a retreat, the Bible majors, 100 of us, and the food was amazing. And on the way home, Clark says, you know, it was good, but I was kind of missing the calf. And I'm like, this was the best food I've eaten in a long time. Nothing against my wife's cooking. But Clark was missing the calf food. Why did that happen? Because he practiced gratitude. Our minds can change, okay? That's why I kicked you out of class the other day. How can we develop an attitude of gratitude? I love how that rhymes. First, start the day right. This is all from Dr. Sood. Our brains wake up anxious. We're already going through the lists, right? Most of you grab your phone and you're already into bad news. So before you get out of bed, just stop. I literally put a piece of paper on top of my glasses and phone so that I couldn't reach for anything without seeing the piece of paper that said, "Get back into bed and give thanks to God, dummy." And so I would get back into bed and I would thank God for a few things. Now, what I would do if I were you is I would think of a few things, thank God in prayer, and then put them down in a journal. And do this every day. That's what Dr. Sood says to do. Do it every day. That reduces anxiety. Start the day right. Give thanks for big things and small things. Instead of thinking about what you don't have, think about what you have. That changes the way that we think. Think about what you have that millions of people in the world would love to have. Food and clothes is what Paul mentions there, but a roof over our heads, a Bible, shoes, 2 thumbs. When's the last time you thanked the Lord for 2 thumbs? Anybody in here this year? 2 thumbs. Imagine if you didn't have them. If you just tape them to the fingers and try going 1 day without your thumb, 1 hour without your thumbs, and you'll thank God you have 2 thumbs quickly. Glasses, for those of you that wear glasses or contacts or laser. A cool water bottle that you have, yeah, with stickers, right? There's all sorts of things, big things and little things. Practice this. And then reframe. This is huge. When something goes bad or is hard, reframe it into something in which you can give thanks. So I actually wore a bracelet for 1.5 years to remind me of some of these principles. And the first day I put it on, the literal first day I put it on, the theme was gratitude. And I went to get my car keys. I had 50 minutes to get to class, and it's a 30-minute drive, and my car keys were gone. Normal Matt would go ballistic, anxiety, frustration, and I went, stupid Dr. Amit Sood. Now I have to give thanks for this. What can I give thanks for? And I went, I have a car. That's amazing. I have a job where I get to teach. I might get there. I might not, but I have a job. I have friends that can come pick me up and take me to where my keys are. They were my kid had them at the high school. God, thank you for my friends. Please let one of them come get me. It changed my anxiety completely by doing that. Reframe. It's a good psychological principle. This one you're going to hate. Acceptance. Practice things that are difficult. Practice accepting things that are difficult. Instead of getting anxious, I practice acceptance when I drive down Imperial Highway every day. Well, not every day. I've been bad recently. But you know how people are, sorry, those of you watching on film, they're just idiots. Instead of going 45, they're going 30. And you go around them, and then you give them a dirty look and cut them off right away, right? I just sit right behind them at 30 miles an hour, and I accept that I'm going to go 30. Try that. Caden, you still doing it? No, did it once. Yeah. Acceptance in the middle of difficult circumstances reduces anxiety, but it takes practice. You're going to have to practice it. I know a couple people now that are getting in the long line at the calf and just accepting it. And if somebody comes in, yeah, you can cut in front of me. Go ahead. I accept that this is going to be slow. It's okay. It'll take some time, though. Sleep, I'm sorry. I know it's not cool to talk about sleep in college. And I know for y'all, it's cool to go, yeah, I got 3 hours of sleep. I'm so tired, midterms and papers. And everybody goes, you're so cool. Lack of sleep hurts your grades, okay? But it also increases your anxiety. So get to bed. That's dad speaking, okay? Get to bed. Share your anxiety with a It says friend, but you should put in there a trusted friend. Don't just tell anybody, because the rumor weed is alive and well at Biola, just like on VeggieTales, right? So find someone that you can trust and tell them what you're going through. Share your struggles with them. I got a message on Instagram today. If you are friends with me on Instagram, I'll talk about social media in a second. But I put on there a quote that I'm going to say here in a second. And a former student wrote me and said, I don't know if you remember, but you talked to me one time. He said, I was ready to end my life. And you talked to me and you gave me some guidance. And now he's married, has kids, teaches high school history. I don't even remember him. I've taught 21 years here. But I went, man, sharing with a friend can be powerful. But share with the right friend. Take 10 seconds and just think, if I were to share with somebody, who would it be? And then I want, if you aren't struggling, think, if somebody shared with me, would I hold it in confidence and not spread it? Think about who you would share with. Next, seek counseling help. I know it's good to talk to friends, but I'm just telling you, my wife's a licensed therapist. She did a master's degree. She actually did 2. And then she did 3,000 hours of supervised counseling experience before she could be licensed. Therapists are trained to help you. Take advantage of that. We have the Biola Counseling Center, and most of you have health cards that allow you to go to a counselor outside of Biola, and all you pay is your copayment. For me, it's $20. It's not a sign of weakness to seek therapy. It's a sign of strength to know that you need help. Should I repeat that? Yes. It is not a sign of weakness to seek therapy. It's a sign of strength to know that you need help. Social media. Get rid of it or reduce it. Okay? There's a direct correlation between the amount of time you spend on social media and mental illness. If you do the research, as soon as all y'all got smartphones, it all went up. Depression increased 52% among teens when smartphones came out. 52%. I know that it's hard to reduce social media. I know that. But guess what? Anxiety's hard too. Which do you want? Social media or anxiety? For some of us, it's a choice, right? It's a real choice. This helped me so much. Jesus understands when we're struggling. It's really helped me. He's close to the brokenhearted and those crushed in spirit. 10, medications. I know that in some Christian circles, meds are seen as evil, and Christians are shown a lack of faith if they take them. But sometimes meds are necessary, and they can be helpful for mental health. My wife takes meds for high cholesterol. Actually, I do too now. Many of us take meds for anxiety too. If your anxiety is caused by a biological issue, meds will help that. It's not the only solution, but it's one of them. 11, spiritual warfare. Sometimes mental illness is caused by spiritual warfare. Notice the first word I said there, sometimes. Not always directly, indirectly perhaps, but sometimes. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. We all know this verse. Do you know the context? Nope, because Lady Gaga doesn't sing this. Yeah, he said that. Here's the next verse. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The context of casting your anxiety is that the enemy is after you to make you have mental illness. I want to say again, not all mental illness is caused directly by demons. But I will give you one example where it definitely was. I had a student who didn't show up to class for a couple of weeks, and she emailed me and said, I have a really bad panic attacks. So I talked to her, and it was pretty clear that it was demonization. So she went to a professor. He's no longer here, unfortunately. And I was walking down the sidewalk and I ran into her. And she goes, "It's gone." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Yeah, I was demonized." And in 45 minutes of prayer, this professor figured out what it was, get out of here, and the panic attacks were gone. Now, not all panic attacks are caused by that, okay? I'll talk about this in a second here. Some are biological, some are just mental illness, and some of us are going to have panic attacks. Let's be balanced in the way that we look at mental illness. 12, inaugurate eschatology, and this is what I put on Instagram today. Our current struggles, including anxiety, are a reminder that things are not the way they're supposed to be. But it also gives us hope that someday God's going to make it right. So it stinks, but we go, this means there's something better. Come quickly, Lord Jesus, right? The kingdom is here, but not fully here. We should expect some things to be messed up a bit. So what causes anxiety? And I'm now over by 59 seconds. I worked in 3 areas when I started struggling with anxiety. The first was spiritual. I prayed a ton. I went up to the mountains for a retreat and prayed through every spiritual warfare open door that I could think of. And I'll just mention that I went with Dr. Chris Grace. Those of you that are taking photos for the yearbook, I hear there's a bromance thing going on, and I hear that I'm losing, okay? So I went with him up into the mountains for a retreat. I then met with 2 spiritual warfare experts, and we prayed through everything that we could think of. Sin issues in my life, genealogical lines, did a student who hated me curse me? We prayed through everything. So pray, spiritual. Physical, I went to my doctor for a physical exam. She put me on meds. I still take meds. I talked to my brother-in-law, who's a neurologist. What's going on? What can I do to help this? Began to exercise and walk outside. Walking outside helps you. Exercise and seeing green helps you. It increases our happiness. It reduces anxiety. And then psychological. I'm married to a therapist, and my brother-in-law is a psychologist. So I got it on both sides, and I talked to them a lot about my struggles. Seek a therapist that can help you. Our brains are complex. It could be just spiritual or just physical or just psychological or a combination of any of those 3. Okay? Just so you know, speaking here tonight causes anxiety for me. I want you to know that. But I also want you to know that I'm 9 years in, and this is probably the least anxiety that I've felt speaking in a big room in 9 years. And here's, And here's, I think, what it is. When I went through this and started taking meds, the meds for me caused anxiety every 3 days when I switched doses. So I had to relearn everything. The one thing I don't do a lot of is speaking in big events. And so every time I do this, I have to relearn. This is okay. God's sovereign. I can do this. But it's hard. So I say that not, yay me, but yay God. I literally spent 3 months on a mattress in my living room. But if you look at the spiritual things and the physical things and the psychological things, there's so many things that can help us today. Here's a summary of what I've talked about. Keep trusting Jesus, even when you are troubled or anxious, in all of those areas that I talked about. And here's my leave. As you look at this list, what would be a good first step for you? What would be a good first step for you? I'm going to invite the worship team to come up, and I want you to spend a moment in prayer asking the Lord to help you in your anxiety, or that you could be a helper for those who have anxiety.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.